I'll try not to yap too hard, I suppose. So we're going to do a tier list for Guild Wars Random Arena. There's going to be slight specialization breakup. For most classes, there's not going to be. I'm only doing a breakup for Ritualists and Dervishes. The truth is I should have done one for Monk as well, but I forgot. Actually, hold that thought. I guess I should. Because something needs to be on the bottom, and that's the perfect scapegoat. Not scapegoat, but yeah. Okay. We added Smite. And we're going to go ahead and put it there. Okay, so I'm going to start with like what I think is S and A and B, and then I'm going to start working down on the row. All right, so first things first. S tier is obviously monks. Now, there are two classes that I have unique observations to say, if you want to call it observation. And that's for monks and Ellies. So, with monks, every team needs a monk or it's not a good team. Preferably one monk. You could do two monks if your other two people are really good with damage. In fact, with team arenas, monk, assassin was pretty popular. It was pretty good. But anyway, in random arenas, there's a weird culture. I'm not going to get into it. People look down upon two monk teams. But even aside of that, two monk teams can struggle. They can both struggle and be seen as kind of broken and unfun to go against. Again, the culture is weird. But anyway, point being, every team needs a monk. So you always want monk on your team, and there's no other class in the entire game that's like, you gotta have this. You might want to have this and you might want to have that, but you can mix and match. You don't even necessarily need any amount of a single class, even the other A tier classes and all that shit. So because of that, monks are in S tier and monks are alone in S tier, and that's going to remain constant. That's going to remain absolutely constant throughout this tier list. Everything else, I might have to think about it. I might be open to discussion on it. The biggest one is where to put dervishes. Actually, I was thinking about that. But anyway, for monk, there's no conversation really to have here. They are S tier and they're alone in S tier. Moving on, I'm going to say A tier might be in no order. Well, I might have to do this. Mesmer, top of A tier. And I'm not 100% sold on that. But the thing with Mesmers is interruptions are not only really good, but they're kind of broken. Because it's like slipping something in underneath what other people are trying to do. And I'm not going to get into the discussion about like how many people are cheating in random arenas. It's kind of depressing. But even just innately, interrupting is stealing away someone else's action, and then you get the effect of the interrupt ability. So it's like, instead of them doing that, you're doing this. And just innately, that's completely bullshit. And the fact that people can have so many interrupts on their bar, and it just makes it so that like, other people can't play while you, the interrupter, gets to play. And both Mesmers and Rangers are really the two interrupt classes, and Mesmers are better at it. Because at least with Rangers, you can line of sight their arrows. At least usually, I was getting hit from underneath the bridge. Who just fucking interrupted me? Who's interrupting me? What? I don't know how that happened, but regardless, you're supposed to be able to. Whereas with Mesmer abilities, you can't. You can't do anything. If they're in range, they can interrupt you. And there's strong interrupts, and there's a lot of them. So, blah, 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 yep. Mesmers, if there's a good / cheating interrupt Mesmer, they get to play and you don't, and they get good effects in between and during the interrupting. So they just win. You could even call them S, but I'm not gonna because of what I said with monks. And even still, the other things in A tier compete with what I just described. Especially if the Mesmer's not cheating. um, so anyway, yeah, if I'm being honest, interrupts kind of ruin the game for me, at least. I'm sure it does for a lot of other people. In fact, I know it does for other people. If I could wave a magic wand, I would get rid of interrupts entirely. Maybe keep like 3 of them, like with like really specific designs, and then rebalance everything accordingly. And that being said, let's transition into the next A tier, Elementalists. So if there were no interruptions in the game, Elementalists would just sweep house. They would just be, they'd probably be up here. They'd probably just, maybe even here, I'm not sure. Probably, actually. Because their numbers are just too high. Their damage is too high, their CC is too high. The only thing holding them back is their cast times aren't terribly quick. And so they're especially prone to Mesmers. And Rangers for that matter. And so, like I said, if I waved that magic wand and said no interruptions, this is the class that would most need to be rebalanced because it's the only thing holding them back. But that being said, even though interruptions do exist and they're so strong in this game, especially as a Mesmer, at least Elementalists are still that strong, especially considering the fact that you can proc like your item slots and have really quick cast times every now and then if you don't get interrupted, you're just putting out a lot of damage. Elementalists do more damage than God in this game. So, oh yeah, and what I was going to say, so with monks, every team wants one monk. Every team wants one monk. If you don't have it, you're a shit team, period. On the flip side, the only other class that can say something like that is you can never have too many Elementalists. In fact, you could have 4 Elementalists, which is a no monk team, but it's 4 Elementalists. You might still win quite a bit of games. You might even go 25 if I'm being honest. But anyway, it's like, so yeah, Elementalists, you can never have too many. If you have a monk and 3 Mesmers, you'll probably win some games. But you might even lose your first game, and you probably won't go 25 wins with that game, with that team comp. Like you get a match of like you're against like an assassin and a warrior, 3 Mesmers are going to be eaten alive. But an assassin and a warrior against 3 Ellies, the 3 Ellies mop the floor. And that's the thing with the Ellies is one Ellie is really strong. My friends actually used to joke. We call them like exponentially amplifying each other. One Ellie is one Ellie. It's really strong. One Ellie's But then if you get 2 Ellies, we joke around and call it 8 Ellies because it's just like, oh my god, I can't stop both of them. We're all dead. If you get 3 Ellies, it's like 42 Ellies because 3 I can't stop. Everyone's dead. Everyone's dead. Everyone like. The next fucking 12 towns over, everyone is dead. 3 Ellies, too much, way too much. Too much damage coming out, and you can't stop all of it. So Ellies are the only class where... So yeah, Ellies are the only class where you can't have too many of them. Even 4 Ellies, that's just... Even like if you don't go 25, that's just going to be a fun ride, right? It's not going to be 0. It might not be 25, but it's not going to be 0, I promise you. But anyway, let's move on. All right, so alone in B tier, I'm going to say is Ranger. Rangers. You could definitely argue them up here, and I couldn't fight it very hard. But I do think I have to put them down here. They don't have damage like Ellie's, and they don't have the inevitability of the interruptions of Mesmers, largely because of the line of sighting. They do have different benefits, like really low cooldown interrupts. But anyway, the thing that Rangers have over those classes is insane durability as well. And they don't have no damage. They have like bleed and poison pressure, and debilitating shot if you ran that. Like, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to run it, but ultimately, A ranger is incredibly tanky. They have 70 base armor, and they have plus 30 more armor against elemental damage. They're like the mortal enemy of elementalists, which is very important with how strong they are. And Mesmers can't do a whole lot to them either. So they kind of are like the anti-meta class in that regard, but they also are just kind of anti-everything. They're good against everything. They're good against melee like assassins and warriors because they have block stances and they can cripple and they can interrupt like an assassin's combo and the assassin's totally fucked. They can interrupt like a devastating hammer from the warrior and the warrior's fucked. They can just do anything. They can do anything. And they're incredibly obnoxious to go against. I don't know if, and like I said, you could argue that they are in A tier as well with the other two classes that are in A tier, and I wouldn't be able to argue very much against it. What I might do, all right, just because of the consolidation, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I've talked myself into putting Rangers up there in A tier, and I'm fine with that. But yeah, so, I might even have to put them here. If they didn't have 100 armor against elemental damage, I don't think I would. But since they do, which is complete bullshit, by the way, they take half damage from all elemental damage, without like any armor reductions, which aren't terribly common or potent. But anyway, yeah, I might do that. Yeah, you know, I'm fine with this. Anyway, I'm gonna not waste too much. I already did waste too much time on this. I'm gonna keep going. All right, so now we have, this is what I can do. We have Dervish now, but this is the one I'm not sure where to put, so I'm gonna put it at the end here. Then we have the other Dervish, the healing Dervish. Frankly, I might change my mind on this. I'm gonna do C tier right now. I might move it down to D tier later, but I'm gonna do C tier right now. They can be incredibly hard to kill. But the problem is that they're not like incredibly good to heal their team with. And what's funny is they do still need to run Word of Healing. Every healer needs to run Word of Healing, even monks. Monks also need to run Word of Healing, or else you're not going to have enough healing output to heal your teammates. Which we were having that discussion in the general chat on the Random Arena beach, and it's like people were like, oh, why don't monks bring hex removal? And I would answer, and you know, it's because there's not very much hex removal. Hex removal is not very good. There's an elite you can bring called Peace and Harmony. I love that ability, but I wish that it was runnable, because that ability is really good. But if you're running that as your elite, it means Word of Healing is not your elite. And if Word of Healing is not your elite, you die, especially to Ellie's, because you cannot. In fact, it's one of those things where it's like, I kind of want to, I'm going to talk myself into moving Ellie back up a bit. Ellie's alone are the reason every monk has to run Word of Healing, or you're not going to be good enough. And even then, 2 Ellies can still kill people, even if the monk is free casting, just because they will kill the person in between like Word of Healing cooldowns. Like, dude, I'm gonna talk myself into putting Ellies higher up again. I gotta stop. But it's like, it's just, these 3 deserve each other, I gotta say. But anyway, it's like, yeah, you have to run Word of Healing or you don't have enough healing. It's really that simple. And you can sit there and tell me I'm wrong, but go ahead. Try it out. Let me know how it goes. Because it's not going to work. Anyway. So Dervish healers. And they're kind of cool. This is a really satisfying icon. It's just like a, yeah, anyway. It almost looks like a cookie, doesn't it? Anyway. Yeah. And I'm going to, all right, disclaimer, I haven't played one, or I might have a long time ago. But like, I know their abilities anyway. And like being a primary monk versus a primary dervish, honestly, it's like Divine Favor's decent, but you also lose out on the glyphs, which as a healer, you kind of only want to use minors, but then you have the helmet too, so like you're missing on like a +2 to like healing prayers. Overall, it's not that much of a difference in either direction, I suppose. But I think the Divine Favor and the +2 to healing prayers is probably better than being a dervish and getting mysticism and whatnot, and minor glyphs on like your earth prayers or whatever the fuck. I don't really know if they use wind prayers. But anyway, so let's move on. So Necros. Necros, I love Necros. And Necros are, I think, one, they're underrated. Two, they're certainly misrepresented with all of the death and blood Necros running around. Because Curses is where it's at. And you don't even need to use a Curse Elite, because Wail of Doom is one of my favorite elites in the game, and it's Soul Reaping. But either way, I mean, for Curses, you could run Soul Bind, you could run Corrupt Enchantment, you could run a Weakened Knees is okay, even. Pain of Disenchantment. There's a lot, most elite curse abilities are pretty damn good. Yeah. So anyway, and then Wail of Doom is Soul Reaping, and that's extremely good as well. In fact, Wail of Doom is so good that when I play Curses with Wail of Doom, I run 40/40 Soul Reaping items because I want to trigger the cooldown on Wail of Doom more than I want to do anything else with more than I want to do the cast speed or cooldown on Curses. Anyway, so Necro is the best support class you can have for physical characters. Unfortunately, physical characters aren't that great except for like Ranger, but we're talking about like Assassin, Warrior, Dervish. Dervish is good, probably better than the other two that I just said, Paragon, but regardless, it is pretty good. Like Rigor Mortis, which is the icon here. I'm not putting it in B tier, I'm just putting it down to talk about it. What was I saying? Rigor Mortis itself is incredibly good. It's like it can be maintainable to a hex to make the person that's hexed unable to block. That alone is extremely good. And then you have Foul Feast, which is basically draw conditions, but just another one. So you can help remove blind spams, but also you could help your monk if your monk is getting fucked up, like with daze, or there's deep wounds. You want to be careful. And I had a situation where my monk was low and bleeding, and I did not want to remove the bleed because monks tend to use the runes on their gear, the insignias or whatever, that gives them 15 armor when they have a condition. So the bleed isn't doing much damage, but it is giving him 15 armor. So it was better for me to keep the bleed on my monk teammate than to draw conditions. Now, if there was something else going on that maybe like a cripple, that would be good to draw. But anyway, it's like Necros are extremely good supports. And that's fine. It's not like that's a bad slot for your team. A healer, and then like a support, and then like, you know, two good damage dealers, you know, etc. Like that, yeah. Necro can do a lot. The problem is the fake problem is that Necro has a lot of bad abilities and people tend to just make bad builds. The real problem with Necro, honestly, it's only that they aren't these other classes. Necro is really good, and I'm going to start off with putting it in B tier. I'm not sure what else I'm going to have in B tier. I'm not sure if I'm going to move Necro. I'm probably going to keep Necro in B tier. Maybe Necro may end up being in the lower end of B tier, but I don't think Necro is C tier. No. So Paragon, funny thing with Paragon, and I'm going to still associate it with Paragon, but Paragon is better off being a Warrior Paragon. But regardless, I'm going to still give that credit. I'm going to still give Warrior Paragon credit as being Paragon, maybe, I think. So anyway, Paragon has Stunning Strike, which is one of the best, if not the best, Daze ability in the game. And Daze is really good. And I mean, I'm sure you could be a Paragon primary and also do well. But regardless, anyway, of course, then you don't have Flail. Yeah, Flail. Yeah, nah. Warrior Paragon really is it. But I'm gonna attribute that to Paragon, regardless. And I want to put that in, I think, oh, fuck that. It's really hard. I'm going to put that in, I might actually put that in B tier. Above or below Necro, I'm not quite sure yet. That might be the strongest version of Warrior, is Warrior Paragon. Even though Hammer Warriors, which is going to actually represent the class of Warrior, is also, it's strong, but then it's also kind of got the problem that Assassin has. I'll get to that when I get to that. Actually, I'm going to move this next thing down over. I got all three specs here. Let's just get into it, but I will do this one last. And I want to do this one first. All right, so this is like basic spellcaster Ritualist. I'm not going to bother with like spirit spamming Ritualist. I'm not going to bother with that. This is the icon here is Renewing Surge. Basically, Ritualists aren't, I probably do underrate them, so I'm going to try to tweak that a little bit in this rating here. The problem with Ritualists is that they are just worse Elementalist, but if you're like a percentage of infinity, you're still a pretty big number. I mean, that's still infinity. So, I mean, and Elementalists are infinity. So, I mean, like, being worse Ellie is not the biggest insult in the world. So, like, and they can do good damage. I've seen it, you know. And they even have, like, the blinding. But I ultimately... Like, I mean, compared to Ellie's, we're not comparing them to Ellie's per se. So, where do we think we're going? They are definitely at least here, but I'm trying to think if I put them in B tier. And I don't know. They might be top of C. I think they're probably at least top of C. Do I want that, or do I want this? I'm gonna do that. All right. So, and I'm not 100% sold on this, but I also don't think that I'm going to change it. Not in this video anyway. All right, so this is such a satisfying icon. I love this icon. It's definitely one of my favorites. So what is that? Men, Body, and Soul, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so this is a Restoration Ritualist. They are... I do really like their abilities. They're really cool and decent. In fact, this ability itself is like heals an amount and also removes a condition. The problem is like draw condition is just so much better. So it's like no one cares about removing a condition. And in general, no one cares about that because like you're going to be blinded and bleeded and crippled and weakened and deep wounded. And it's like if you just remove a condition, it's going to be like one of those and it's not going to be the blind, you know, and you're burning. It's like, yeah, and the burning is about to run out anyway. And then that's the thing that gets removed. And it's like, shut up. Yeah, so no one really cares about that. But that's kind of like, I feel like that's the problem that all of these abilities run into. Now they use Zinre's weapon, which is probably the best resto elite that they have, but that's basically just a slightly better reversal of fortune. Like it's a semi-offensive reversal of fortune because it does lifesteal, so it's like it deals damage to the enemy person too. But if you get hit by like a dagger attack, then it's just doing fuck all. So yeah, it's just kind of rough. But they do have good, unique support. I think the best version of like a caster ritualist is a combination of resto and damage. And I've been meaning to kind of fuck around with the idea of making that build, but regardless, as far as like a pure healer goes, I want to put it, I feel like I got to put it below a Dervish, in fact, because Dervish has good defensive abilities. Ritualist kind of doesn't. They don't have nothing, but they don't have great things. Alright, so the last thing I'm doing for a Ritualist is a physical damage Ritualist. Sight Beyond Sight and Spirit Strength or Strength of Spirit, where it just gives you like plus 38 damage. It's possibly the highest damage output you can have, maybe even more than Ellie's. If you do like with daggers, or you do, the best success I've had is with daggers and with scythes, actually. I really like my scythe build with this. And I'm sure that like spears is also pretty good with it. I should try that next. Um, some things aren't very good. It's not very good with hammers. It's like okay with axes. Not good with swords. Yeah. So anyway, it's like when you play melee, you just get blind spammed all the fucking time. This is really good for that. The only problem is if you get enchantment shattered, especially like more than once, you know, if you just it's like totally wiped on enchantments and consistently, then you're dog shit. So it's a gimmick. I guess that because of that I had to put it C tier. Yeah, I have to. But I do think it's definitely better than these two things. So now we have assassins. This is a tricky one. I do think they are underrated. But then again, when you look at the tier list, it's like, what are they being compared to, you know? It's like something has to be on the bottom. And I guess when I put it that way, it's like, yeah, maybe assassins kind of are at the bottom. I do think they are above the two non-monk healers. I might put it here. Possibly here, but I'm not thinking so. I don't really think so. But coward assassins are really obnoxious. They're actually pretty good. I guess because of yeah, maybe I think I'll do this. I think I will do this. And I really like Beguiling Haze. It's a really good on-demand daze. Assassin has a lot of good stuff. Some complaints that I have playing Assassin, though, is that they do not have good forms of crippling / slowing the movement speed of the target. They also don't have much disruption at all. They have moderate protection. They have some things. Critical defense is not good because it just gets shattered and it's on a huge cooldown. Flashing Blades is your elite, but it is a very good, reliable source of blocking. But then it's like, well, then what are you doing? But I mean, that's fine. But yeah, blah, blah, blah. Assassins, ultimately, you can say a lot of things about them. The biggest weakness of them is that like an interrupt on like one of their combos just ruins their whole skill bar. Especially if you throw a diversion on the tail end of them doing their lead attack. Like let's say they have their lead attack is Jagged Strike, which is like a 1 second cooldown, and it lets them use all their abilities. Suddenly it gets fucking interrupted with a plus 20 cooldown from D shot, or it gets diversioned right as it's being completed. Now they're fucked. They're totally fucked for like the whole game. And it's like you fuck up one skill, it fucks up their like entire character, and that's like the biggest problem with them. That being said, you can be a smart assassin. You can pace yourself, kind of see what's going on, be aware, try to you don't just dial in your combo. You can space it out if you're able to. Of course, not all combos you're able to, like knockdown combos, for example. But regardless, Assassin has high potential, but too many weaknesses. So I think they cannot be higher than C tier. I think they're in a pretty decent spot. Top of C tier is pretty decent. But now we have Warriors. This might contest their top of C tier. I might put Warriors top of C tier. Hammer Warriors top of C tier. The best Warriors, other than Paragon Warriors, I guess. Well, let's see what we think about this. So, the thing with Hammer Warriors is they have the same problem as Assassins. So yeah, I think I have to do that. They have the same problem. If you interrupt one little thing in their whole combo, it kind of fucks them over. And maybe not specifically, like if you interrupt the crushing blow, that's probably fine. And well, even then that's not, because then they don't get the adrenaline to then do the hammer bash. It kind of depends. They're slightly less vulnerable to it, but at the same time, they can be a bit more predictable as well, because they can't space out their combos like Assassins can. they have to just kind of do the sequence, and then you get interrupted on it like once during the whole sequence, and then yeah. In fact, I might even put them below assassins because of that, but I don't think I will because yeah, no, I'm not gonna, because first of all, they can pick their target to be the person that's most likely to be able to interrupt them, which is what I do. But then, I mean, obviously there can be more than one person that can interrupt their combo. But also, like, it's strong. Like, you can, like, knock down. I have a combo where I knock people down 4 times in a row, and then also, you know, the deep wound and all that. And, like, I can kill someone, fold to dead, and they're totally CC'd the entire time. And that's really strong. That itself is S tier, but with all the weaknesses it comes with, it gets thrown down to like C tier. Yeah. Okay, so what do we got? Now we got dervishes. Probably a Grenth dervish, which I hate. I mean, all right, so I'll say this too. Dervish is going to be high up. It's either A or B. It's minimum top of B. I know some people are trying to say to me that they should be an A tier, and I would not even hate that. I would not hate that. I will definitely at least start with top of B tier. In fact, should it be, should it actually be this? No. No, shit. Something-ish like this? Maybe? Because I do feel like this is like in between. I do feel like this is actually somewhat accurate. With Smite should be like an F. Smite should be an F. Can I get rid of it? I can't get rid of it. I can't add another tier either. So like with dervishes, they're like somewhat impossible to kill. They're not impossible to kill, but they're possibly the hardest thing to kill. So much so that it's often just seen as a waste of time to try. Same with trying to slow them down. Like with blinds, kind of rough because and you don't know their build, but they very often have ways to get rid of blinds. They lifesteal a lot to where like putting an empathy on them doesn't even do anything. They're just like a force that can't be stopped. They're like an unstoppable force is the best way to put Dervish. And they are a force. They're not like negligible either. You got to get away from them, and you can't always get away from them. They are, I'm going to talk myself into putting them into A tier. And maybe I have to. Maybe I should, because I am kind of talking myself into it. Yeah, and like I've played a brainless build recently, and it is pretty A tier. Probably bottom of A tier, but that's A tier is pretty damn strong right now. So let's kind of fix this back up. Yeah. All right. Here we go. We're okay right now. Okay. So this is what yeah. So and the thing with Dervish is like you really just roll your nuts on the keyboard, and you might not do as well as someone who knows what they're doing, but it's so minimal that no one's ever going to know the difference. No one's even watching you when you play Dervish. No one knows what abilities you're hitting. You're doing like 7 flash enchantments, you're doing random scythe attacks, you're moving fast, you're crippling people, you're doing a ton of damage, you're healing a lot. You're just doing everything. No one has time to look at what you're doing. And even if they are, they can't do anything about it because it's all instant abilities. And like interrupting one of your melee attacks doesn't really slow you down at all. You're still just smacking people, boom, boom, boom. It just doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is like when you had to redo your avatar, that's like getting that interrupted would suck. And even that's not like a huge deal. It's not a huge deal. Your avatar is like good, but it doesn't, if it gets interrupted and you don't have it for like the next whatever amount of time, you're not useless. You're still a guy that does most of the same stuff. And yeah, dervishes really are just an unstoppable force. And that's, yeah, I guess, yeah, So let me see. So I agree with S tier. I agree with A tier. Okay. All right, and I agree with D tier. So how do I feel about everything else? Am I being slightly biased putting Necro top of B? Possibly, but yet I don't think like in a wrong way. Am I being should Ritualist be top of B tier? Possibly, could be. I don't know really enough. I don't play it myself. I've seen it a million times, and yeah, it can deal damage, but it's like, is the damage it can do better than like a good Whale of Doom on a monk with like, now they can't block. It's like the two best assets of Necro, or if you're a Soulbind Necro, you know what, Soulbind Necro is kind of why I should keep them where they are, top of B tier, not lower than that, because Soulbind Necro is incredibly ridiculously strong. You put Soulbind and then Parasitic Bond on everyone, and it's a nightmare. It's like putting the game on a clock. It's like the monk will not be able to keep up with that. So if that doesn't get shut down, the Necro team will win. I'm about to talk myself, but no, I don't think it goes into A tier though. Yeah, that's tough. That could be A tier, because it really does put the game on a guaranteed win clock, and nothing else does that. Nothing else really does that, except for maybe Ranger, with just all the bullshit interrupts and all the bullshit degen. That's really the only other thing that puts things on a guaranteed clock of winning. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough, but I think we can settle with this. Yeah. Anyway, and then yeah, Ritualist, DPS Ritualist Spellcaster, I should say, going right there, and then Warrior Paragon, we could say, is representing Paragon. That shit is strong, I'm telling you. That shit is strong. Because you have Flail for basically no penalty. Who cares if you move slower? You're a ranged attacker. And then you have so much, like, you have conditions, you know, good damage, daze, with daze plus good attack speed from a range. You have cripples, so they can't like get away and weave your spears, blah blah blah. It often feels like a cheat code. If you are unchecked, like with blind spams, it is a cheat code. So I feel like it's fine where it is. Yeah, bottom of B tier, and then next to the top of C tier is the other Warrior Hammerden, Hammer Warrior, yeah, which has the blind spam weakness, but also like the interrupting during your combo weakness, same as Assassin, which is why it's lower. And then the Ritualist melee, which would be in B tier, if not for the fact that the disenchanting it can be kind of common, and then if they see what you're doing and they just disenchant you, you're just fucked. You're just totally fucked, and that's rough. Slightly counteracted with like a monk that's working with you and covering your buffs with like Vigorous Spirit, maybe even other things too. And then like one person might not be able to get to your Strength of Spirit in time, but they still can. I don't know. That could put this build a little bit higher up, maybe even like here, or maybe even here. But we're gonna really lean on the random arena aspect on that, where it's like you can't expect too much teamwork like that. Even though that's kind of minimum, because you can just ping that you're doing your buffs, and then a monk should be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna cover it with Vigorous Spirit, just like an Elementalist doing their attunements. I'm gonna cover it. When I play monk, that's what I do. Of course, when I play Elementalist and I ping my attunement, they don't do it. They don't cover, or they like do it while I'm casting the attunement. It's like, no, that's not how you cover, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm happy with all this. I think I'm happy with all this. So like there are other things I could have included, like other branch offs of what these classes can do. Okay, I guess update. I did add the pet build and the Deadly Arts Assassin build. So the pet I put below the Paragon, the Warrior Paragon. So bottom of B tier for the pet. As strong as the pets can be in many cases, and pretty unfightable in many cases. Like a lot of things that hold it back, they do have counters. Particularly in this case, just dogpiling, no pun intended, dogpiling on top of the pet, making sure they die every time that they're up. And then it's like, eventually that person is just kind of useless. But even that still takes resources and time and blah, blah, blah. So that is true. And sometimes you can win the game while they're dogpiling on your pet because they're dogpiling on your pet and not on other people. But anyway, it's very strong, but you know, it's not perfect, I guess. What can you say about it? It's very simplistic, but I mean, all of these things are really strong, but not perfect. So bottom of B tier is still pretty strong. Look at what's on here. You know what I mean? So anyway, top of C tier is going to be the Deadly Arts Assassin, basically Spellcaster Assassin. It has the same weakness as all of these things here, where the three things on top of C tier, where it's like you can interrupt their pretty telegraph combo, right? And kind of screw them over. But this is probably the best of the telegraphed combos, I have to say. I feel like if you play that, just play Ellie. I like doing days combos, but yeah. At that point, I should be playing Warrior Paragon, so yeah, I don't know. It is what it is, I suppose, huh? Anyway, okay, so that's the update. I think with this update, I have covered all of the things I need to cover in terms of like the subclasses within them. Like I said, air and earth are kind of, for Elementalist, air and earth are where they are. I'm not going to do a separate thing for fire and water, because fuck it. Fire again is somewhere in B tier. And then water is somewhere in C tier. Maybe top of C tier. Yeah, probably. But whatever. Anyway, I'll let someone else have their time in the other tiers. I'm just gonna have Elementalists on all of them. Anyway, there you go. And really, I want to hear what other people think. I like these kinds of discussions. So anyway, that's that.